Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. As you know, in part three of our entertainment show, each week we premiere a new movie or TV series that is debuting here in Ireland and the UK, and especially here in Ireland with Irish interests and Irish eyes are smiling. And up for discussion this week is a new boxing movie that is hitting the screens. It's a biopic type movie. It's all about the story and the life of the great legendary former heavyweight boxing champion of the world, George Foreman. It's called Big George Foreman. It's hitting our screens on April the 28th. It features an all-star cast, including Khris Davis, Sullivan Jones, Forrest Whitaker, Lawrence Gillard Jr., and our special guest this evening, the one and only Matthew Glave. And Matthew Glave, if you might know him from Argo and The Wedding Singer, he plays the legendary sports commentator, sports broadcaster, journalist Howard Cosell. And Howard Cosell was from the 1950s up as far as the 1980s, was really a pioneer of American sort of sports journalism. He was leading light, probably recognized as one of the best boxing sport journalists on the planet at that sort of time. So first of all, Matthew, welcome. And how did the opportunity come about for you to get involved in Big George Foreman?
The audition came around. They were looking for someone to play Howard Cosell, and we're back in the COVID times, right? So no one is auditioning in person. So everyone has been, and they've been for the last 2-3 years auditioning on tape. You have to self-tape and send in the tape. Well, my wife, my better half, always tapes with me, and she did a makeup job where we dyed my hair, combed it over. She took special effects of some sort of pads and made my ears forward, and did everything she could to get me in the ballpark of looking like Howard Cosell. And then I had to do some of the scenes, and then we sent that in, and then a long time went by, and then they wanted to see it again, which was funny because at that time I just stopped shaving after that appointment, so I had more beard than this. But I was like, well, I'm not going to shave to do this again. We do the whole makeup job again, but I've got a white beard and brown hair, and I look rather ludicrous. But and then I got on with George Tillman, the director, and we just had a talk through session and everything, and then that was it. We're off to go work on it in New Orleans.
And Matthew, growing up, were you informative of sports? Were you sort of had an interest of sports? Obviously, did you have parents? Obviously, did they have a sporting interest? Were you aware of Howard Cosell in terms of his attributes and what he had done in terms of his sporting legacy and his journalism career?
I did. I grew up a boxing fan, and in the greatest era of boxing with all of those guys. And Howard Cosell everyone knew Howard Cosell. He was huge, and that made it more of an intimidating undertaking because he's not just a sports commentator. He's Howard Cosell. But
And
yeah, I grew up with him.
Yeah, and you mentioned that obviously, and it just struck me in terms of the character, because obviously the movie is called Big George Foreman, but it's the same way you could actually do a movie just on Howard Cosell on his own and call it Big Howard Cosell in terms of the lifestyle he had and the sort of life he lived. He was a larger than life character.
Yes, yeah, a huge personality. He wasn't. He was as equal of a personality as Muhammad Ali. They complemented each other with their long interviews and their banter and their playful fighting and everything.
And you mentioned that obviously, Matthew, growing up as a boxing fan, and do you feel that sort of knowledge of the boxing sort of industry in terms of the terminology, the phrases, the sort of words, did that sort of help you in terms of auditioning for obviously, because sometimes actors, they get opportunities in roles because I think people say, well, he might fit the bill, he might look the part or stuff like that. But if you like the sport or if you have a knowledge of it, it goes a long way in terms of helping you for your audition as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He never shut up. So if you watch an old boxing match, you never don't hear his voice, and he's always making colorful comments. And plus those fights that we shot, they're on YouTube. You can watch the fights. I mean, different people call the fights, but you can catch him constantly chiming in with his own colorful commentary.
Mm. And in terms of the sort of being the commentator and commentating and sort of such, there's I know I've done it myself once or twice here. There's a certain sort of a tone, there's a certain sort of a rhythm in terms of a commentator, in terms of once they get into sort of sequence, it's almost like a galloping sort of a session where they have to keep up with every sort of thing. So it's not like you can break mid-sentence in terms of that. You have to be, dare I say, proactive. You have to be able to go in a sort of, in a tandem really, that might last 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, the way that he talked, it was, it was around 1974 for this, but he's still doing this radio style for people that are tuning in on the radio. So he's literally telling the energy of the fight. He's talking about the distance and so is being defensive and somebody's really coming on strong. He's really describing for someone who might just be listening to it on the radio.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find that did you find that, dare I say, exciting or a bit sort of challenging getting into that sort of rhythm of a commentator?
Extremely challenging. Really extremely challenging, because I don't really want to pick up the Howard Cosell mantle and do it badly or do him any injustice. Whenever I would ever play anyone else that is someone, it's always an intimidating thing, because you don't want to try to parody them. You don't want to do it badly, do it wrong. It's always intimidating. You want to do somebody a certain amount of justice.
And I was, before we came on air, Matthew, you said that you were there for a short time in production. I also spoke to Lawrence Gillard Jr. But in terms of the two boxers that played George Foreman and that played Muhammad Ali, Sullivan Jones and Khris Davis, what Lawrence said that there were no sort of ducking, even though it was choreographed. These guys were really giving each other welts in terms of going at each other. And do you get to see any bit of those sort of sequences in terms of them being able to go toe to toe with each other?
I didn't see Sullivan and Khris, because that was called by a different fight. It might have been Larry Merchant or Jim Lampley. I'm not sure, but Cosell didn't call that fight.
Okay.
So I saw Frazier Foreman.
Okay.
And so I watched them, and yes, they had some good pro boxers in there with Khris, and he was great. And so I don't know who, because there's like 3 stages of fighting. There's Ali and Foreman and Frazier Foreman, and then when he comes back after his retirement, much later.
And in terms of doing that research for Frazier sort of Foreman, obviously you knew of the fight, knew the story, but did you try and research to get maybe the finer detail in terms of what sort of went on? Did you feel that you needed to explore that sort of chapter a bit more in terms of research for the Foreman Frazier fight, in terms of your own sort of self-discovery?
Absolutely. I watched the fight over and over, and I watched it without listening to Howard Cosell. I watched it listening to Howard Cosell, and it's historic. Him knocking out Frazier was so huge, and they did it such great justice, the way that they choreographed it to match it very clearly to what actually happened. I mean, he just swarmed him. He just overwhelmed him. It was a phenomenal fight.
And I do believe, Matthew Glave, it's a busy time for you at the moment in terms of other projects, and the Rookie is going strong here in Ireland and the UK in terms of its premise, in terms of season. Obviously, the Rookie Feds has came out as well. They're the spin-off sort of series here in Ireland and UK. But you're starring alongside Nathan Fillion at the moment in terms of the Rookie, and you're dare I say, have you wrapped up for this season?
Yes, Rookie's finished for this season. They'll be back in a few months.
And in terms of the shooting, obviously, because we're a season here behind in Ireland, is exciting times for you and the season you just shot?
Oh, absolutely. It was great. Yes, you're a season behind, so it's you still have to see the last season. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Interesting. I mean, I guess I wouldn't know, but it seems like with streaming and everything, it would all be you just be able to grab it, but they just kind of release it in a different timeline for
Yes.
us.
So basically, in terms of TV sort of channels, I suppose here in Ireland and UK, the stations get it, while Netflix is probably universal. And but the likes of
Right.
Sky Witness, Sky Max, in terms of that, they get the contracted sort of stuff a bit sort of later than other sort of contract sort of stuff. So it's different. While maybe streaming platforms like Roku, like Netflix, like Amazon Prime, they're more global in terms of that. And Matthew Clave, have you any other sort of projects in the pipeline? You were mentioning there you were shooting a new movie coming out there, and before we came on air, that you're looking forward to, about a cult.
Yes, it's yeah, we begin production in the late summer, early fall, and it's about a cult called Heaven's Gate, and the movie is going to be called The Leader. But it was a cult in the early '90s where the leader believed that had all the followers believing that aliens were going to come pick them up and take them to heaven, and it was very disturbing end to that story. But that's going to star Tim Blake Nelson as the leader, and then Vera Farmiga will be his accomplice. The two of them have the cult.
Okay. And Matthew Clave, now for the final 30 seconds for all our audience, our listeners and viewers, you might enlighten us why they should go out to the cinemas on April the 28th, watch Big George Foreman, and what's in store for them?
It's an extremely inspirational movie. George Foreman is an amazing person. Nobody changes so dramatically in their lives. He's lived two entirely separate lives. And there was early George Foreman, and then there's old George Foreman, and I got to meet him. It's excellent honor to meet the man, but he's truly accomplished something that very few people could do. No one has done, and the fact that he's just an entirely different man than he was. He changed himself, and the stuff that he went through and the journey that he had. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a really good man. So it's an honor to be part of a story about his life.
On that note, Matthew Clave, to me, Jim Conlan, to you, Matthew Clave, for the upcoming Big George Foreman production and the rookie as well. We wish you all the success in the near future, but for the moment, and we also wish you all the success playing Howard Cosell in Big George Foreman. But for the moment, stay safe, take care, and God bless.
Take care. Nice talking to you, Jim.